Welcome to Ground School. Grab a seat. Today, we're diving into an explainer that could, quite literally, save your life: the physics of best glide speed. We're going to look at the hard science of keeping your aircraft flying when the fan up front suddenly stops turning.
Here's our flight plan for today. We'll look at the engine out emergency, break down Parasite and induced drag, pinpoint your best glide speed, and finally, put you right back in the cockpit for a simulated glide scenario.
All right, Section 1, the engine out emergency. Let's get right to it.
Picture this: you're cruising along, enjoying the view, and suddenly, total silence. The prop stops turning. Your engine just quit. What do? In that exact heartbeat, you are no longer flying an airplane, you're managing a glider. And your survival absolutely depends on capturing and nailing one specific airspeed. But to understand why that exact number is your lifeline, we have to look at the invisible forces acting on your plane.
To understand that magic airspeed, we first have to talk about the enemy: drag. Basically, it's the aerodynamic force fighting your forward movement. It's the invisible hand constantly trying to hold you back.
Now, drag isn't just one single force. It's actually a two-headed monster: parasite drag and induced drag. And the absolute key concept to grasp today: they behave as exact opposites as your airspeed changes. Let's break them down.
Moving to Section 2, Parasite Drag, or what I like to call the speed penalty.
Look, parasite drag gives you absolutely zero benefit. It is literally just the unwanted aerodynamic resistance of your airplane shoving its bulk through the air. The faster you shove that plane through the sky, the harder the air pushes back. It's a direct, inescapable relationship. Higher airspeed equals a massive increase in parasite drag.
It comes in three specific flavors. First, form drag. That's caused by the aircraft's shape, like your landing gear and struts hanging out in the wind. Second is interference drag, which happens where parts meet, like where the wing joins the fuselage, churning up a turbulent wake. And third is skin friction drag. You know why I make you scrub the bugs and frost off the leading edge before a flight? This is why. Even tiny squashed bugs trip up the smooth airflow and ramp up that friction.
The golden rule of parasite drag is that it increases with the square of your airspeed. So if you just double your speed, you don't double the drag, you quadruple it. Actually, let me emphasize that. At high cruise speeds, parasite drag completely dominates your total drag picture. Okay, Section 3. Let's flip the coin and talk about induced drag, the lift penalty. Induced drag is basically the inescapable tax you pay just to stay airborne. As your wing produces lift, the high-pressure air underneath desperately wants to escape to the low-pressure area on top. So it spills heavily around the wingtips, creating these violent spinning wingtip vortices and a massive downward airflow behind the wing called downwash. That downwash actually tilts your overall lift vector slightly backward. And that backward tug holding you back? Yep, that's induced drag. When you're flying at lower airspeeds, your wing is working frantically to keep you up. You have to fly at a much higher angle of attack, pitching the nose way up, just to produce enough lift. More angle of attack means larger vortices, heavier downwash, and massive drag. It increases inversely with the square of your airspeed, meaning if you cut your speed in half, you pay a 4 times penalty in drag just for flying too slow. Crazy, right?
That brings us to Section 4, finding best glide speed. If going fast kills your glide with parasite drag and going slow kills it with massive induced drag, what's the solution? Where exactly is the balance?
Take a really close look at this graph. It's basically your survival map. On the left, you see the curve for induced drag shooting way up at slow speeds. On the right, parasite drag skyrockets as your speed increases. But look right in the middle. When you combine them, you get the total drag curve. Right at the absolute bottom of that bowl, exactly where the parasite and induced drag curves cross, that is your point of minimum total drag.
We call this sweet spot, L over D max, your best lift-to-drag ratio. It is peak aerodynamic efficiency. In an engine-out glide, your engine is now gravity. You are trading altitude for horizontal distance. Nailing this exact magical speed guarantees you get the absolute furthest distance for the altitude you have left to spend.
All right, Section 5, surviving the glide scenario. Let's take this math out of the classroom and put you back into the cockpit during an emergency.
Imagine 3 identical aircraft suffering an engine failure at the exact same starting altitude. The pilots can make one of 3 choices: fly too slow, fly too fast, or nail the best glide speed. Notice how the aircraft flying best glide actually makes it to a safe landing spot? The other 2 fall tragically short and end up in the trees.
Let's break down exactly why those other pilots didn't make it. When the ground is rushing up at you, your primal human instinct will be to pull back on the yoke to try and stretch the glide. As an instructor, I see students do this all the time in simulations. But as you know from the physics we just covered, this is a fatal instinct. Pulling back increases your angle of attack, skyrockets your induced drag, and basically turns you into a massive air brake. You will fall short of the runway. Worse, pulling back down low risks an unrecoverable stall. Never try to stretch a glide.
On the flip side, the opposite mistake is just as bad. If you panic and shove the nose down too steeply to keep your speed up, you shift to the far right side of our drag curve. Parasitic drag takes over entirely. This massive aerodynamic resistance means you're burning through your precious altitude way too fast. You'll just hit the ground sooner, and again, land significantly shorter than you could have.
You must hit that exact speed. But here's a pro tip. Your best glide speed is actually weight dependent. A heavier airplane needs more lift to support itself. To get that lift, it flies at a slightly higher angle of attack. So to avoid sinking into high-induced drag, a heavy plane actually needs to fly just a little bit faster. This is exactly why your Pilot's Operating Handbook, your POH, publishes best glide speed at maximum gross weight. If you're flying solo with half tanks, your true best glide speed is a few knots slower than what's written in the book.
The crucial takeaway is this. When the engine quits, hitting the exact best glide speed in your POH is not a suggestion. You pitch for that airspeed, and you immediately roll in trim to hold the nose exactly there so you can free up your hands to troubleshoot and declare an emergency. You're trading altitude for distance under the strict laws of gravity, and trust me, the physics of drag do not negotiate.
So before you ever untie the plane for your next flight, ask yourself, do you actually know the precise best glide speed for your airplane? Don't just guess. Look it up, commit it to memory, and respect the forces behind it, because gravity's always working, and one day your engine might not be. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer. Stay sharp and fly safe.